Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round of Bases Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. And yep, we're doing it a little bit early this week. Obviously, there are two cards on of any particular note. There is the big DAZN card taking place in the morning over here in the UK. In the wee hours of the morning if you're in the States, East and West Coast, but in the nighttime if you are down under in Australia, New Zealand, anywhere along those the Pacific Islands, etc, etc. Yeah, I'm gonna stick to main and co-main on both. I think that's fair. Early bouts, the early cards over the years are not particularly stacked with talent in terms of the wider audience. I don't know many of the names on the Australia card. To be fair, I also don't know a huge amount of names on the card for taking place in Sheffield, but we'll see where we get to. Yeah, I guess with that being said, let's get into the picks. Okay, so look, if we start with the co-main event or the chief support, whichever way you're looking at it, for the Australia card, you've got Justice Hooney taking on Sean Potgater. I've seen a little bit of Sean. Funny enough, I literally just finished watching one of his previous fights against a guy called Joshua Pastorius. Look, if we're talking about level, like, Hooney is like levels above Potgater, but there are some things that he does need to be mindful of. I don't think Potgater's got much power. He's more of an attritional type guy, but he's got a pretty good double jab that it gets him into range. He telegraphs his right hands quite a bit, so provided that Justice Hooney stays alert and stays switched on, he should be able to miss the right hands quite easily. He's got a nice little uppercut on the inside though, and Hooney does like to trade in the pocket these days rather than boxing and moving. So while I expect him to be fairly comfortable there, the uppercuts that I have seen from Potgater, they're very quick. They're they're very taut as well. There's not a lot of tell on them. There's not a lot of backspin, especially like the initial ones before he possibly gets somebody hurt. He's got decent footwork, to the sense that he's a mover. He can move about, he can spoil a bit, he can draw you into him so that you've obviously got to try and counter. So these are all things that I guess Hooney needs to kind of watch out for. But if I'm being totally honest, looking at the level of competition both guys have been in with, Justice Hooney should be minimum 4 levels above Potgater. So even though it's 10-0 versus 10-1, something in and around that area, I'm expecting him to make fairly light work of him. I don't expect the fight to go more than 4 rounds. Hooney is not the biggest of punchers, but he does seem to be able to grind down lesser opponents, especially on the insides. If he sticks on the inside, if he keeps pressuring, if he keeps Potgater moving on the back foot and doesn't allow him opportunities to get on the front foot, he should win the fight and win it quite comfortably. So yeah, I'm gonna go for Justice Hooney via stoppage inside 4 rounds. He needs to really put on a performance here. The lower, it's all good having the activity against the lower level opposition, but you've got to be dealing with them in the correct way as well. But I'm hoping this is the last of the the activity fights in that sense. I know he needs the activity, but just I'm not saying he needs to be fighting world level guys or anything like that, but those fringe guys, those guys on the outside, the people like the Cassius Cheneys and sort of that ilk of opponent. I think that's where he needs to be moving forward. Him versus Frank Sanchez, I think would be a good fight if he gets past this one, which I expect him to do so. Right, now main event, you've got Opetaia versus David Nyika. Obviously, it was supposed to be Hussein Sin Cara, but he tore ligaments in his ankle, unfortunately, so had to come out of it. But there is one thing about this fight that is actually concerning me, and there's a very big parallel to this fight with with Jai Opetaia. Was when he was fighting Hussein Sin Cara. Sin Cara is about 6'3", similar size to Jai Opetaia, 6'3", 6'4", somewhere in and around there. Jai is about 6'2", and David Nyika is about 6'6", so very statuesque. And it's given me, while the height disparity isn't the same, it's given me flashbacks of Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora, where Tim Tszyu was preparing for a 5'9", guy that boxes and moves, and he sort of maybe throws a flurry, but it has footwork in the sense of Hussein Sin Cara, and then ends up facing a 6'5" guy who's a opposite stance to him, and doing that on the fly. Then you see the cut and all these. There's a lot of parallels there which are giving me a bit of unease in terms of how to sort of play this fight out. David Nyika is a good puncher. He's very good with his punch selection. He's got a pretty good jab. He hasn't really his footwork hasn't improved much since from the amateurs to the pros. I thought his footwork would be better. He's normally fighting guys that are much smaller than him, so I don't feel like he's being punished too much for not the bad footwork, but just the non-world class footwork, if we're going to say that. Also, he's a tall guy that doesn't fight tall. He doesn't really use that range and that reach as much as he could. He does tend to get drawn into tear ups, and thus far he's definitely had the more higher artillery and the stronger firepower than his opponents. But that doesn't equate when you're having a situation like this, because in every single one of his fights, as much as he's comfortable on the inside, he's comfortable trading with his opponents, there's no opponent he's fought, number one, that hits as hard as Jai Opetaia, number two is as aggressive, and number three has better punch selection, collapsing that pocket from mid to mid-range to inside. Now Jai's more of an ambush guy. He does prefer to stay towards the outside, like sort of darting, shooting, get back out, and then sort of go again. He's definitely that sort of ambush raiding, and then only if he feels like he's got you suitably worn down does he really step on the inside and really sort of dig hooks to the body. But he likes to throw those those heavy backhands and those heavy lead jabs to the stomach from the outside, and he likes to collapse the distance and collapse the pocket that way. Nyika doesn't move his head very much. He doesn't move his torso. Again, like, even though he's upright, he doesn't fight with that length in mind, and then he gives up his height and his reach to go and trade on the inside with guys. I don't see that being a good game plan here. Now, look, the one of the biggest things that could possibly maybe happen is clash of heads, because they're both obviously for opposite stances, and if Jai barrels in and Nyika bends down and dips down, there is a potential that obviously there could be clashes there, and that could be where any particular damage could occur for both guys. But just looking at the overall talent levels and look where they've been fighting, and it's a fair assumption that you could say, well, Jai Opetaia was no more experienced at world level when he fought Bradis than what Nyika is now, but he did have a lot more fights in the bank. He also fought a lot of fights with adversity, busted hand, cracked ribs before, so he knows what it's like to grit through and grind through in a dark time, in a bad moment. David Nyika hasn't had those tests yet. None of his fights have gone beyond 5 rounds, and he hasn't fought any caliber of opposition that's gonna prepare him for a fight of this magnitude on such a big stage. I know he wants it, and I know he manifested it, but number one, it's way too early in his career, and number two, he hasn't really progressed as much as a pro as the talent he had from the amateurs would suggest. So I do think he is going to get hurt in this fight, and I think it's going to be fairly early. I can see a scenario where inside the first between 4 and 6 rounds we're going to see a fight and a demolition job by Jai Opetaia, very similar to the Jordan Thompson fight. I think Thompson fought better level opposition than Nyika has thus far as a pro, and he's a bigger and I would say stronger puncher than Nyika too. Maybe not as skilled in terms of boxing, but yeah, looking at all of that, I just see the experience, the power, the grit, the determination, the hunger, and the raw savagery of Jai Opetaia being way too much. And yeah, between rounds 4 and round 6, Nyika just is he's gonna take a sustained beating, and either the corner's gonna throw the towel in, or the referee's eventually just gonna wave it off and say enough's enough, save him for another day. That's my opinion on that one. Let me know what you guys think down below. And yeah, I guess with that being said, let's move over to the other card taking place in Sheffield. Okay, so moving over to Sheffield, the chief support is Sweet Caroline Dubois versus Jessica the Cobra Kamara, I think is a nickname. With this fight, it should be a fairly entertaining fight. Jessica is very well schooled, she's well drilled, she's been in some tough fights in the past. She had an upset win over Hyunmi Choi about just over a year ago. No, it was just under a year. It was April 2024, which was one of probably her biggest win on her resume. I still believe that she was I'm gonna say robbed against who was it that she fought? Kaylee Reese, when they were fighting for the women's tournament at 140. She's been going sort of up and down in weights, but she's lost to Melissa St. Ville before. She's lost at a more sort of junior level to Natalie Brown. She got KO'd by Carla Zamora, which was a very unexpected occurrence. What probably wasn't as unexpected, I suppose, was the Natalie Brown one again, like getting KO'd in that level. The Kaylee Reese fight, like I said, I feel that she didn't get the rub of the green in that one. I'm kind of going around the houses just to sort of fill time here. Look, Jessica is 36. She's about to be 37 in a few months, I believe. She's, like I said, she's yo-yoed between weights. We don't actually know what her best weight is. She might be comfortable here, but Hyunmi Choi obviously was realistically, she was a super feather for the majority of her career. So yeah, all just sort of going up and down, just taking the test. Like, Caroline is a special talent. Jessica she's going to be treated like a keep busy fight. And for someone, obviously, as rugged and seasoned as she is, that almost sounds disrespectful, but that's how Caroline is probably viewing her. And I think Caroline's too aggressive. Not only is she too aggressive, like, she will dig her toes into that canvas and throw everything behind those shots. I don't see Jessica being able to sustain the defense to be able to pickpocket her and just basically do enough each round to nick them. Caroline's also she's gonna bust up that body, and I don't know how much Kamara's gonna be able to protect that and stop the air coming out of the tires before those headshots start raining in the sort of from about rounds 3-4 onwards. I see this fight being extremely one-sided, if I'm honest. Maybe Jessica might get one 1 round. I can't see the fight going the distance. I see Caroline Dubois winning this fight. Maybe Jessica might hold out for 5 or 6 rounds, but inside 7 rounds, I see the fight being stopped. Either Caroline, has decimated her to the point where she gets knocked out. The corner decide, there's no point trying to carry on. I just see it being a very, very hard fight for Jessica, and one that she doesn't see the final bell. So that's my opinion on that one. In terms of the main event, you've got Callum Simpson versus Steve Woodall. Now, I don't know necessarily if you could call this a step up for Callum Simpson. I think rankings wise, he's quite a ways above Steve Woodall, but it's a good mark in the time fight. I think he's got a fight. I don't know if it's lined up, but I know he's supposed to have a fight with Zach Chelli. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. No, he had the fight with Zach Chelli. Who is he? I can't remember. Okay, there's someone he's supposed to be fighting next, and I think that this is almost like a marking time fight. Now, obviously, Steve Woodall had the he had the sort of the upset win over Lerone Richards, but Steve Woodall's he's like a good a test to sort of just keep you active and keep you sharp. And I think that's ultimately what this is, an opportunity to get him a homecoming fight, get him a fight in Sheffield, build up his resume, and sort of just build his fan base in his local community. Woodall is a durable opponent. He's been stopped once, if I can remember correctly, and I think it was it Steve Rolls, the guy that Golovkin faced? I think that's who stopped him. So, he only been stopped by a guy at fringe world level. So, Callum's not quite there yet, but I do think that Steve, with his newfound his newfound enthusiasm and vigor for the sport, I think he will be able to see the final bell. There's a chance that Callum could sort of blitz him early, catch him cold, but I do think Steve will do enough to kind of get through the rounds. I think it's a 10 rounder they're fighting. So no, it's a 12. I think it's for the British title on the line, super middle, and I think the Commonwealth is on the line as well. So yeah, it's a 12 rounder. Okay, that maybe changes my thought process, because I thought Steve would be able to see 10. I'm not sure if he can see all 12. But for the sake of this one, I'm gonna go for Callum Simpson to win a unanimous decision. Steve Woodall to sort of fiddle his way around and just make it tricky and awkward in those later rounds, and just sort of survive, do okay in sort of the first 4 to 5, and then after that sort of just not play keep away, but in and amongst that kind of verbiage. So yeah, look, that's my opinion. I think Callum Simpson will win via unanimous decision. Please leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of the 4 fights this week, if you're even going to bother to watch them. But don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Well, thank you as always, and I'll catch you on the next one. But for right now, Spaces Picks locked.